Hi guys, Brian Garibam from the Hague Tech here. Today I'm replacing Charles. He's too busy. He's busy doing business, but I'm here today to replace him. So, hoi, community. And today we're here with Ian Merrington. I think we've met about 6 months ago.
That's right, Brian, in Cape Town.
In Cape Town, and we were also discussing about setting up a sky bridge where the Hague Tech can work together with you. And basically exchange knowledge and companies and develop it further. Today it's the first time you actually visit our hub. Could you maybe tell the community who you are?
Sure, Brian. I started in a very conventional corporate way. I trained as an accountant. I worked in FMCG for a long time, and I made my big switch was to move into advertising and creative world, where I was group financial director of BBDO South Africa. Which was a big switch from conventional linear production line thinking into creativity. And in some ways, for me, served as a perfect segue into innovation. After many years in advertising, I went out on my own and I was a strategic business consultant for a while, where I started to work with some fantastic startups. One has just had an amazing exit in South Africa, an ed tech startup, in fact. And I got involved with Citi, the Cape Innovation and Technology Initiative, actually on a consulting gig where I was looking at financial, commercial sustainability, and opportunity arose, and I decided I could really get involved in this. And I think innovation, I saw an enormous amount of parallels between creative process, the creative thinking process, which is very non-linear, and innovation. And fun enough, the one little bit of magic I think that I recognized that was common to both was the environment. One needed an environment that stimulated creative thinking, that there weren't too many rules, that people weren't too risk averse, that they were prepared to fail, they were prepared to break things. And that was innovation, and that sort of sat very well for me. And I think I also saw, I suppose, the difference that technology can make in an environment like South Africa and particularly in Africa.
Do you have a concrete example for that?
I do. We've seen some amazing products around health tech. We recently had a startup which came through the Bandwidth Barn. So I'm CEO of the Cape Innovation and Technology Initiative and the Bandwidth Barn. And that startup was formed by two medical doctors who were working in emergency medicine, and they saw the load on these rural hospitals, and particularly the cases they were treating were by and large, they were all emergencies, and they developed an app to triage the patients, thereby saving lives. And that was a very unique technology solution for an African-style problem. They developed an app which went on an iPad or on a tablet, which was able to just ask some very basic questions and go through the international triage scale and produce a ranking and produce a color sticker, and they could put it on patients in the queue, so doctors knew who to treat first and who to prioritize, because they were completely overwhelmed in their normal day-to-day life. And something like that has been able to leapfrog to the developed world, because it can be used now in emergency situations in first world environments, and it's typical of how technology can actually jump the ocean, so to speak. So that really excited me, and the ability of technology to make a difference. I think the other area we've seen in South Africa is the ability of technology in education. We have problems with qualified teachers, classroom size, too many people in classrooms, the geographic constraints between schools and people's ability to get to a classroom. And with increased connectivity and broadband reach within South Africa and on the continent, it gives us an amazing opportunity to use the power of mobile and smartphones to actually deliver education. Yeah. Again, in financial technology, we've seen a lot of examples, people who've never had access to any banking products suddenly being able to get a microloan, via their cell phone. There's some very inventive products that give people a credit history based on how often they charge their cell phone. Yeah. People who don't have a physical address, and we can jump all the way to the blockchain, which is creating the opportunity for digital ID. Yeah. So that excited me a lot, the ability to use technology for good, and of course one can develop I think like any good not-for-profit, we also need to have a sustainable commercial model. So we need to do things that people can actually attach value to, and they're supporting innovation. I think we're seeing how legacy business is being disrupted by this massive pace of digital innovation and disruption. Yeah. And their ability to be agile, not so great. And that's where we can come in as people who understand the technology, understand design thinking and agility, and apply innovation.
And as a CEO of Citi and Bandwidth Barn,
yes.
Which is an initiative that already exists for, say,
it's 20 years. We're Africa's oldest technology incubator.
Okay, so a lot of legacy.
A lot of legacy.
What was your first step when you started?
My first step was really to, traditionally being classically a not-for-profit, it was a very a funder-driven organisation, and I think with government's priorities sort of changing and budgets shrinking, it had to find alternative revenue streams. So to create some commercial sustainability, and I think typical of a not-for-profit that is trying to do good, it had a fantastic social orientation, but perhaps missing underneath it was a layer of commercial orientation. Me being an ex-financial director, I could bring that, but I could bring it in a nice way and still do good. And obviously important for us to be able to do good is the ability to sustain ourselves commercially. So was try and find a way to combine the two, to take the best of both worlds, the best of doing good and social responsibility with being able to monetize the value we actually add to the ecosystem. I'd say was my first priority, which we've done pretty well at in the last 2-3 years.
And what's the biggest challenge for the coming years?
I think the biggest challenge would be scaling. We now faced with trying to, I suppose if one wants to have systemic impact, you have to scale. So we've taken, for example, one of our pillars is digital and technology skills development, particularly amongst disadvantaged people who haven't had access to these. And we were doing, say, between 250, 300 students a year, creating 300 jobs. We now have moved that to 1,000 per year. So that for us is a big step change. We've moved outside of just Cape Town. We're now doing 3 centres across South Africa. We're in Johannesburg, we're in Durban, we're Port Elizabeth, and we're in Cape Town. And that itself is a challenge because you have to take your culture and transpose it onto remote locations. And for us, we'd like to still be able to do this across the continent and in greater areas across Africa. So how can one cover more ground but still be true to yourself and bring all that energy, bring the innovative thinking, bring that inclusive culture to bear is a big challenge. And I think me as CEO, how do you keep all the original values, what's good to you, really transforming people's lives in a nice way, but to do it at scale is my biggest challenge at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And do you only focus on South Africa?
We would like to be Pan-African, and certainly our EdTech incubator is Pan-African. We have a cohort of 8 different countries. We've recently run a program for a London-based organisation called the Royal Academy of Engineering. We ran their Africa Prize, which was a combination of FaceTime, high-touch incubation with digital incubation, and that was also Pan-African. So for us, ideally, we'd like to have a presence also in 1 or 2 other African countries, just to create more capability on the ground.
Any countries on the short list? Besides the Netherlands, of course.
Within Africa, not yet. We're still looking at the opportunities. The one thing we at City try and do is not go where everyone else is. So we try to think quite deeply about it. As an example, when we started off in the early days, the first technology we focused on was mobile, because mobile was happening. It was a new thing. Yeah. Now we don't do anything in mobile. Then 4 years ago we launched the first Bitcoin Academy before cryptocurrency was sexy and cool, and everyone knew how to invest in it. Now we're probably more about the blockchain now, and we've moved on to EdTech. We've just launched a biotech incubator.
From my understanding, EdTech is our advertising...
Education technology. Sorry,
okay.
Education
because
technology.
It can also be advertising technology.
It can, of which there is most definitely a segment as well. In this case, it's education technology, where we see a massive opportunity within South Africa and Africa, obviously, for technology.
When we visited South Africa, which was in September, also with the municipality of The Hague, one keyword was very prominent during our trip, and was leapfrogging.
Yes.
Leapfrogging is a character of the market and the need and the energy that lives in South Africa, and especially in Cape Town.
So it particularly represents that ability to skip a generation of product sets, or maybe even 2 generations. And with computing, you'll find in South Africa, and particularly the greater continent in Africa, people have never had access really to a desktop computer or a laptop computer. And in fact, their first exposure to technology and the internet is via their phone. So it does give you it creates a unique opportunity for you to actually create products that are unique, that are mobile based, that are truly customer centric, and you don't really have to defer or have deference to or respect for the legacy product set. So if you thinking financial services, we don't have to create a product that looks like a virtual bank, because people have never seen a bank before. You can truly create a product from scratch. So your design thinking can be very powerful. And people have no legacy frame of reference, and that typically their first interaction with a banking product could well be on their mobile phone, and their first loan they could get. So that's what we call, skipping a few steps in evolution. What probably you could call, it's not always revolutionary, but we would like to call it punctuated evolution, where there's a big jump, punctuated evolution rather than revolution. So it's still evolutionary, but we'd like to think it's a big step.
And would it also mean that specific character provides a lot of opportunity also, for instance, from startups within our community or even here in the Netherlands?
It definitely does. What I've seen this morning at Hague Tech has been amazing. It's really blown me away. The quality of the thinking, the quality of the startups, and not all of them nascent startups, some of them well past their MVP stage. Their ability it would be fantastic to bring that knowledge and that IP to Africa, and perhaps apply that methodology and the innovation and the technology that they're actually all using to a more unique African-style set of problems, which is often very different to developed economies such as Europe and what you have in the Netherlands.
Are there any specific are there similarities or are there specific differences?
I think the specific differences are that the market is less mature, so you have consumers who don't necessarily have the earnings or the income capacity or the ability to access, let's say, loans or financial services that they do here.
And when we're talking about market, how many people are we talking about?
It depends. South Africa is 42 million. And
42 million consumers.
And in many parts of South Africa, demographically, if you counted the amount of cell phones or SIM cards, it's double the population, which means that many people have 2 SIM cards because they're always they're switching between the 2 to get the best deal, whichever mobile operator is offering, which is a unique thing, one of those unique African kind of things. So we would see a lot of opportunity, I think, to harness what you've got here is ability to scale. I think you have a bigger market, but to apply that similar...
Bigger market investment-wise or consumer-wise? Because if you compare consumer-wise with South Africa, we're with 17 million consumers here in the Netherlands. So
I think what you do have here is obviously much stronger buying power. And I think, so often the market is big in numbers, but it's much smaller in GDP terms. And I think that's what's quite important.
But do you also see any similarities or differences between the different kind of communities and the talent?
It's quite interesting seeing the startups that spoke to us and the tech people that we met this morning. It's very similar. I think the nice common bond is this want to share and want to make things better, and the open collaboration. I think that is a big commonality. I think the difference is the nature of the opportunity in Europe, where it's more developed, is much more competitive. South Africa is much less competitive, so the ability for a technology entrepreneur to make a difference, I think, is greater in South Africa than it would be in the Netherlands or in Europe, just because there isn't so much competition.
So you would say that come to the effort to really make a difference and an impact instead of...
You could actually have the opportunity to make systemic change. Whether that's in education, whether it's around financial services, whether it's using the blockchain for digital ID, it's whether it's about data analytics, it's whether it's biotech, it's all there. The opportunity's there, and I think your opportunity to make a bigger on-the-ground difference quicker is much higher.
Perhaps it's also good to know for the viewers and the listeners that as the Hague Tech and City, we signed a memorandum of understanding.
We're brothers in arms.
We're brothers in arms, so we're trying to see whether startups, people are interested in going to South Africa. And actually, when you go, you will be warmly welcomed by Ian and also the other way around.
Thank you.
What kind of companies could you imagine to go to the Netherlands from your community at the moment?
Definitely our fintech community. We've got a very strong blockchain community in Cape Town, South Africa. I happened to attend a blockchain meetup this morning in the Hague Tech, and I got to see what was going on. I think that certainly to me would be a big opportunity. EdTech, I think we'd love to see education solutions. You were talking to me a little bit earlier about pairing teachers on a digital platform. First and foremost, that's the constraint we have in our classrooms is trying to get teachers to be digitally literate before they can allow the pupils to do full digital adoption.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. And from our side, we replaced the bandwidth bond and City. We can provide a soft landing. We can provide an intro, and we work very, very closely with national and local government, who are very tech friendly. You'd be pleased to and certainly encourage and stimulate it, and provide them with an office and a place to be and a ready community. That would be and all those connections.
Well, sounds great. Thanks for coming over, Ian.
Thank you for
Inspiring
hosting me and thank
story.
you for inviting me. Fantastic. Our airbridge is working. It was good to
Step
cross
one.
it.
Now step
Fantastic,
two.
and it's lovely to see this sense of sharing and I think bonding within the innovation and technology environment and community.
Yeah, it's about knowledge sharing and working together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note talent isn't local. Talent is everywhere. And basically we need to cross those kind of different ecosystems together and make people work together.
I think absolutely, Brian.
Yes, awesome. So thanks guys for watching and listening. Please leave any comments and likes and follow us on YouTube, iTunes and SoundCloud.
Don't forget to hit the bell on
Don't
YouTube.
forget to hit the
So
bell.
you get a notification when a new video is uploaded.
Yes, and this is also a call out for Dutch entrepreneurs. If you want to venture into South Africa, contact Ian, contact us. We can also put you in touch with Ian. And if you want to identify opportunities, let us know.
Yeah. And don't forget, follow us on YouTube, iTunes and SoundCloud.
I just said that.
Yeah,
but
but
don't forget that.
the power of communication is saying more than once.
Okay, awesome. Bye-bye.